So, stream of consciousness is something that I've been thinking a lot about in terms of creating a portion of the podcast that isn't planned. It isn't a Q&A with an interviewee. It's either myself just kind of talking off the top of my head, or maybe me having a conversation with a friend, a family member, and just kind of talking through an idea or an issue or a concept that I think is relevant to overcoming graduation. There are so many things that we want to learn, that we're curious about, that we think could be something that would bring new joy into our lives, but we're so good, we're fantastic at convincing ourselves that we don't want it, that it's not right, that it's not good. We use a lot of consistent excuses, things like I don't have time, I don't have money, or the things that are more based on our personality. What if people judge me? What if they don't like me? What if people look at me differently for doing this? What's truly unfortunate about all of that is those things that you're holding back from, that in your heart you know you should be doing, when you're holding back from that, all of a sudden you are denying the things in life that you know you're meant to do. It's really unusual how easily and how quickly we turn ourselves down. We tell ourselves no. And just the way that we've been brought up, that society has taught us, we don't even realize it. That's what really blows my mind. I think that one of the most valuable skills that anyone can acquire is becoming aware of their own inner dialogue. And this was something I was completely unfamiliar with until my time out in Wisconsin. So after I graduated college, I graduated from Penn State in May of 2012, and left. I went on a short vacation. I gave myself a graduation gift, went to Costa Rica for 2 weeks. And then I think about a week after I came back, I packed up my car with everything I could fit in a 2000 Toyota Solara and drove up to Wisconsin. And I lived in Appleton, Wisconsin for a little over 2 years. I think it was like 2 years and 2 months. And as you can imagine, just from the name, this wasn't the most exciting, crazy place in the world. It was a very small town, surrounded by farms, not a lot going on. And one of the things that I decided when I graduated college is I promised myself that I would not let the real world get the best of me. When I hit my senior year, there were so many people telling me, oh, just wait till you get into the real world. Oh, once you graduate, the fun's over. The real world is going to get you. And I chose not to believe that. I chose to say, you know what? Maybe that's what you think, but I'm going to make it different. I'm going to choose to make each day, each year, even better, even more exciting, even more engaging. Because I've met and known many people who are much further along in life, in their 50s or 60s, 70s, 80s, who find joy and beauty and excitement in every day, who create opportunities for them to have new experiences, new ideas, meet new people, and connect more and impact more lives. And when I finally was starting to realize some of these things, I got out to Wisconsin, and then I started getting in a different routine. I was meeting people. It was summer, which, contrary to what you might think, summer in Wisconsin is beautiful. Great weather, lots of country music, lots of beer. Yes, beer and cheese are as big as you think. And so we're having a great time. And very quickly, after all the fun, I'm going out, I'm working, I'm enjoying my job. Things seem great, but very, very quickly, it turned into the monotony. It turned into the routine. All I was doing was going to work, working, let's say 9 hours, 8 to 9 hours a day. I'd come home. I would cook the one or two things I knew how to cook. And then I'd watch reruns of TV shows I'd seen a million times and go to bed. And Then on the weekends, I'd go out, we'd drink a lot, you'd wake up hungover, you'd be, dead on the couch all day. Then I'd go out again, and then on Sunday, I'd try to recover, and Monday, repeat. And I've had this feeling, in college, I had the feeling that there was more to life, that I was meant to do something greater, that there were always things out there that would bring me more joy, more fulfillment, that I'd be able to impact people more. But as much as I loved college, and it was fantastic, college also provided so many fantastic distractions that it was very easy. You'd be like, what is life all about? And then your phone would ring. You get a text, hey, buddy, you want to come to the bar? Boom, you're gone. So you have something to distract you. So in Wisconsin, there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot for me to do or to distract me. And so I finally started thinking more about my life and about the things that I've always wanted to do. And then a really kind of pivotal moment in my life, something that was the catalyst or the impetus for so much of what has happened to me. And it was a bad day. I'd gone to work. I'd been there about 6 months, and we were getting into the Wisconsin winter. And as I think just about everyone who's listening knows, Wisconsin gets cold. And I'm not talking like, it's below freezing. In my in my 2 years there, the first year, it got down to minus 32 with the wind chill. I thought that was as bad as it would get. The next year, we had 2 weeks in a row where it didn't get above minus 40, with the coldest day being minus 53. So when I'm talking cold, I'm talking real, legit cold. And I'd gone to work, Groundhog's Day again. Same thing, same monotony. I came home. I was eating the same. All I knew how to cook at that point was I'd bake chicken breasts. I'd cook up some broccoli in the microwave because I wanted to be healthy. And I'd just lather it with some kind of sauce. And that was about all I knew how to do. And I was in an awful mood. I was just sad. I was down. I was confused. I was like, this isn't the right place for me. Maybe this isn't the right job. I don't feel like I have any true friends. I was having trouble with all these things. I knew a lot of people, but I just didn't feel a depth of connection like I did with my best friends from growing up or my best friends from college. So I was feeling lonely. I was feeling kind of lost, scared, like what's my purpose? What should I do? What's the big reason I'm here? And I look at my email. My brother had sent me a video and said, dude, you got to watch this guy. Click on the video, and I see a little man in a wheelchair, and this guy's name is Sean Stevenson. And it's called the Sean Stevenson Dance Party, which if you haven't seen, you got to. You absolutely got to, especially if you're having a bad day. Watch the Sean Stevenson Dance Party video. You're instantly going to feel better. And I hope it gets you dancing because it did for me, and immediately turned around what was an otherwise just really kind of horrible day. And I know sometimes we get hard on ourselves and we say, well, nothing really bad happened today, so why do I feel down? But we're all human. We all have good and bad days. We all have emotions that sometimes come and go for no reason. But it's okay. It's one of those things I'm learning more and more about. I'm coming to understand that these emotions, these fears and doubts about life, about the future, about our purpose, about our career, they're all so normal and in so many ways universal that the great majority of people you talk to, even the people that you emulate, that you look at as so far beyond what you think is possible, or these people who are achieving and doing these fantastic, great things, they have those same doubts. They have those same worries. They have those same fears. They have relationships that fall apart in their lives. They have loss. The thing is, these people that achieve these incredible things, what they have is a tenacity to push forward and continue to try and experiment and continue to make steps towards what they believe in, regardless of what happens in their life. And it's not always perfect. They get thrown off. There's ups and downs. But when you keep moving forward and you keep taking steps, it's incredible what you're able to accomplish. So I'm sitting in my apartment alone, my very stark, white-walled, 2 couches, a bed with no frame apartment in Wisconsin. I'm sitting there, I watched this video, and it made me smile. It completely turned around my mood, and it was such a little thing. It's just a couple-minute video. This little guy in a wheelchair dancing to Kesha. And so I was like, I gotta find out more about who this guy is and what he's all about. He can't just be this random guy who made a video about dancing. For all I know, he could be because it's the internet, but I figured I'd search. I checked out his name and then came across this thing called Awesomeness Fest, which is a speaking series and it's a weekend-long event that's run by a company called Mindvalley, which is located in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And it's an online internet marketing and publishing company. What I found out is that Mindvalley is a company that is redefining what it is to have a working experience or a career in so many ways. They value their employees and take care of their employees very similarly to Google. And they do some things Google doesn't, and Google vice versa. But I started saying, wow, this is fantastic. I didn't even know companies like this existed. And so I dug in more to Awesomeness Fest. There's all these speakers talking about wellness, about health, about your emotional and mental well-being. And Mindvalley is all about personal development and personal growth products. So I started watching these speeches, and when I came home from work, instead of turning on Family Guy or some How I Met Your Mother, I started watching these YouTube videos while I was eating my dinner. You know, it didn't take any extra time. I wasn't carving extra time out of my day. I just replaced what was once just a repetitive activity with something new. And all of a sudden, I found this shift. I found this total change in perception of the world because I started hearing new ideas. I started hearing things I'd never heard, people talking about possibility and overcoming obstacles and doing things that they never thought were possible and using unique methods to make that a reality, and things that earlier in my life I would have said, okay, that's weird, or that's woo-woo, that's nonsense. Things like yoga, qigong, meditation. These are all things that when I was younger, I had a certain sense of, maybe not fear, but just kind of skepticism, where I said, you know, that's just some hippie nonsense. The journey is the destination. All this stuff is crap. And I didn't really have another answer. I just said, that's nonsense. I don't believe it. But as I'm sitting out here in Wisconsin, in my apartment alone, listening to these people talk about the transformations, the shifts in their lives, the horrible things they went through, and how they used whatever this was to overcome, to grow, to find a deeper understanding of themselves, I said, why not try it? Why not just give it a whirl for myself? And the more I started trying things, the more I started finding value in things I had never even imagined I would try before. And just for everyone out there, for all the listeners, for you young guys especially, who I know you don't have much money like I didn't either, every single school out there that I've tried has a free introductory class. I started trying things that I'd never tried or that I'd always wanted to try, things that scared me, things that excited me. I just wanted to have new experiences. So I tried salsa lessons. I've always wanted to learn salsa. I had a great time with that. I went to a mixed martial arts school and tried jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and boxing, kickboxing. I went to a CrossFit gym and tried CrossFit for the first time in my life. And this is all in Appleton, Wisconsin. So I guarantee wherever you are, if you think, oh, well, it probably isn't here, it's probably too far away or I couldn't go. If I could find it in Appleton, I guarantee you can find it wherever you're at. It's amazing what the internet opens up now. And this just opened so many doors for me because I started to see possibility. I started to realize that so many of the things that I believed as fact, like, well, I live in a small town, so they won't have a CrossFit gym, these things were just nonsense. They were completely false. These were facts, I'm doing air quotes, that I had created in my head based off nothing, based off no observation, no real attempt to try. And the more I tried, the more I found it was there, the more I found I enjoyed it, and the more I found that each experience created a different type of learning, or it brought a different type of knowledge to me. And the more that you can learn, the more, my dad has always said in his life, and this is something I said in a separate podcast, but he's always said, I think one of the greatest compliments you can give a person is that they are eternally curious. And ever since he said that, I've always said, my brother as well has said, we want to live that. We want to live being eternally curious, being constantly fascinated by the world around us and the people we meet. And by doing this, I opened up new doors for myself. I started to realize that there was possibility in life I had never even acknowledged before. When I was going into the office and people were talking negatively, saying, well, this is what it is, and I'm just going to do this for 40 years and then I'll retire. Or they were saying there's no way to get what you want. People who have suffered through difficult things in their life and have chosen to accept that their current reality is the only reality. I stopped believing it. I stopped assuming it was true. I started to see a different perspective on what life could be and what it was becoming for me. And all of a sudden, so many of these things that I had never even tried, or these things I dreamed about for years, started to become possible. And one of the examples was writing a book. I had always wanted to write a book in my life. Ever since I was young, I thoroughly enjoyed writing, creating stories. I loved creative writing. I did very well with it. People seemed to enjoy my stories. The teachers said I did well with it. So, I was getting good feedback. I was enjoying the process. When I got into college, unless I really had a class for it, I didn't write. I never read. I didn't like reading. And so I had kind of lost touch with that thing that brought me so much joy. So when I started this mental shift in my life, I distinctly remember one day I was in my apartment, I was getting ready for bed, and something came on TV, and it was something about writing a book or publishing a book, and I had that flash, that flicker, that spark in your mind of the beginnings of something magical that we so frequently just douse with water or squelch, and we just push it out of our mind. And I said, man, I'd really love to write a book. I would really love to write a book. That would be so much fun. That's something I've always wanted to do. And what happens immediately? Your mind goes, oh, well, no, you can't. There's no way. You're only 20, I was 23 at the time. You're only 23. There's no way. Then in part of you goes, okay, I guess you're right, I guess. And then most of the time what we do is just move on from that point. We have the idea, we have the inspiration, we have the intuition, and we're about to get moving, and then negativity, right? No time, no money, no blah, 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 blah. And the excuses come up so quickly. It's, oh, I'd love to publish a book, but how am I going to sell 1 million copies? How am I going to get it published? How am I going to find an editor? How am I going to do any of these things that you think in your head are essential to making this dream a reality? And so what we do is mentally create so many roadblocks and barriers and put the goal so far away that it seems virtually impossible. We like to hide behind that word impossible because if we say it's impossible, there's no point in even trying. We so frequently don't look at the reality that small steps are the only way we're going to get there. No one, wanted to write a 500-page book and just wrote it in an hour and then published it and it was done. It takes steps. It takes time. You go through ups and downs. And so for the first time in my life, that idea ran through my head. I'd been taking in this motivational, personal development, inspirational material. I'd started reading more of that. I've started listening to the Awesomeness Fest videos, to TED Talk videos. And then finally, I said, I'd love to write a book. And my mind said, well, you can't. And was about to move on to something else. And then a voice that really hadn't spoken up before said, why not? Why not write a book? And then the other voice said, well, I mean, there's just so many things we'd have to do. I mean, the publishing, the editing. And then the other voice spoke up again and said, what's stopping you from writing a book right now? Not publishing, not editing. That's all stuff you do down the road. What is stopping you from sitting down with a pen and paper or sitting down with your computer and just typing this up? And all of a sudden, it was just this huge, oh my God, kind of moment for me. I was like, I could write a book right now. I could start a book right now. And that mental shift was just such a small thing, but so profound that the internal dialogue for so long had been going on and just squelching my ideas, my inspiration, right? Oh, you see a girl and you're like, I'd love to go talk to her. Oh, but she's probably too hot. It probably wouldn't work out. And you have all these ideas that shoot you down when you never know what's going to happen until you try. So even with that, you would think the story went, oh, okay, I had this inspiration, and boom, I sat down and I wrote a masterpiece, and not the case. That's often not how real life goes. I had the inspiration, and still it took me about 2 weeks. But 2 weeks later, because I'd been making excuses, I said, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. Later. Later's a good time. Finally, that night came. It was late. I had stayed up late cooking, and I had to be in the office early. I was stressed. I was like, I'm definitely not going to get enough sleep. And then finally, my mom's like, maybe start writing the book. And again, I said, no, tomorrow will be better, or I'll do it on the weekend. And then finally, again, that voice just finally got firm and said, write it. Write one sentence. Just start with one sentence and then see where it goes. And so I stopped what I was doing. I opened up my computer and I wrote one sentence. And I said, if I write one sentence tonight, I've started a book. I've started towards a dream. I've taken one step towards that dream. And that was the beginning. It was such a simple thing. But from that day forward, I committed. I said, you know what? I'm going to write at least a word every day, which sounds hilarious in terms of writing a book. But so often I would sit down and I'd write a couple paragraphs, or I'd write a page, or the really ambitious days, I'd write 2 or 3 pages. And there were nights I only wrote a sentence, like literally wrote one sentence, closed my computer, and went to sleep. And about 2 years later now, I have a 296-page book that is one more edit and one round of proofreading away from being published. And I tell this story because I want you to realize that whatever it is you want to do is possible. No matter what anyone else tells you, no matter what anyone else's experience has been, whatever your dream is, no matter how crazy or ludicrous it might sound, is possible. It takes courage, and it takes an amount of just contradictory behavior to society to make something new and radical happen. People will often try and tell you that what your dream is ridiculous or doesn't make sense, or that it's something that isn't realistic, because they have had experiences in their life that have told them that they have to limit themselves, that they can't be or do the things they wanted to, so they feel the need to tell you the same. But what is both terrifying for them and one of the most beautiful things for you is you challenging that convention, challenging that idea, can liberate them. At first, when you take on something, people may try and stop you. They may tell you it's crazy or it's ridiculous for you to do that, or it'll never work, because they're afraid. Because if you prove that it is possible through your actions, then that challenges everything they've known or they've come to accept as truth. Because all of a sudden now, those things that they were saying they could never do, you just proved it was possible. And when it's possible, now we don't have that word impossible to hide behind anymore. And when it's possible, it all comes down to personal responsibility. It all comes down to okay, so if we can do it, why aren't we? And that is a very hard thing to address and look at honestly in life. There are so many things that we all want to do, we want to try, we want to experiment with, but it's a lot easier to stay in our comfort zone. It is a lot easier to just sit on the couch, watch those reruns of that, whatever that show may be, have a couple beers and go, I'll get in shape later, I'll read a book later, I'll do all these things later. What those shifts did for me, what starting to introduce myself to these materials and these motivational, inspirational people did was it got me started, it got me moving. So I started writing this book, and then I said, I've always wanted to write a blog. And that voice had finally gotten stronger. It said, you know what, why not? Why not start one? And then the other voice, well, you don't know how, maybe it'll cost money. And then again, the other voice, well, let's look it up, let's try. I started my first blog called findingyoursilverlining.com. And it was really just an experiment for me to see if blogging was something that I loved. Because I knew if I wanted to turn this into a business or a career in the future, that I have to prove to myself I love it. And I really can't invest a lot of money because I'm paying so much towards student loans that any of these investments I make have to be very basic and at a very simple level. I'm not buying the deluxe package. I'll just get it started. And I found starting a blog is cheap. With my book, I was able to network and find an editor who would work with me on price because she knew my story and what it is I want to accomplish. And then I'm watching these Mindvalley videos and I'm just, again, thinking, God, it would be so amazing to work for Mindvalley. And the voice pops up again. I'm strengthening that voice by giving it all this motivation, and it says, why not apply? And then I said, well, you need this crazy video resume to apply because they're so selective and they get so many people that you would need to do something really crazy and wild to even get a shot at an interview. And then that voice said, okay, well, what could be an idea that would be something they've never seen before? And what I found is when you pose questions to your mind in a way that is enabling or a way that is challenging your creativity and your problem solving, your mind will do amazing things. When you just tell it no and you tell your subconscious no and you move on, it'll accept that and just say, okay, I guess not. But when you take these big questions, ask yourself, think about it, take some time, sleep on it. There's a fantastic Awesomeness Fest speech by Lee Browers. So it's L-E-E, and then his last name is B-R-O-W-E-R-S. And he talks about the empowering question. And the whole idea is to pose things to yourself in a way that says, how could I do this? How could I make that happen? Rather than say it's impossible, decide to ask yourself if it could be or how you could do it. And after that, I came up with an idea that I thought was creative, and it took me on a 7-month journey of personal development, of exploration, of experimentation, trying new things, teaching myself to cook. I taught myself Portuguese in 7 months. I tried more jiu-jitsu classes. I ran events with this group called My Team Triumph, which is a group that helps individuals with mental and physical disabilities participate in endurance events by having able-bodied runners push these people with disabilities in specialty running strollers through half marathons, all kinds of events. If you haven't heard of them before and would like to learn more, please go to myteamtriumph.org. And if you look up the My Team Triumph Wisconsin chapter, which is the one I ran with, it's actually the largest chapter in the country, and what those people do is just phenomenal. The people running that organization and the people involved are just some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. And why I'm telling this portion of the story is to let you know that if I hadn't taken steps, if I hadn't believed a dream was possible and just started these things, I never would have had all this growth. I never would have learned another language. I never would have taught myself to cook and found a joy in this thing that was scary to me before. I was like, I don't know how to do that. I'll never learn that. It was just introducing myself to this power and this energy that existed in me that I had never seen before. And so after 7 months, I compiled this video. It's Brian Drury's Mind Valley video resume. If you'd like to see it on YouTube, I'll attach it in the blog post after this if you're curious. And 3 days after I sent it, I got a response from Mind Valley. And I went through the interviews. I was Skyping with people in Poland, Malaysia, New York, all over the world doing these interviews. And it was the most exhilarating thing to realize that this was possible, to even be at that point, to have gotten the first interview, to realize that my idea did hit them in a way, that something that I created was able to reach people in that way. And I say this not to brag or be like, oh, wow, look at this great idea I had. I'm trying to help you understand that I'm just like you. I'm a guy who was lost and confused, and I just took action. My one friend said to me, Brian, I love what you do because you basically have no idea what you're doing, but you do it anyway. And I laughed, but I was like, you're absolutely right. And I want you all to realize that if you just give yourself permission to be great, because it's in you and it wants to come out, just give yourself that permission to try, and you'll be amazed at the results and the effects that happen after that. And after that, so the Mind Valley, I get to an interview at one point, and I realized that if I was to move to Kuala Lumpur and join the company, I wouldn't be able to pay my student loans. And I wouldn't even be making enough to make my payments, let alone live. And so I knew that wasn't the right step at the time. Although this seemed like the dream, I knew it had to change because I graduated with $80,000 in student loans, and I refused to let my parents take on something that I had accepted as a responsibility. So I said to myself, there has to be a way to still achieve my dreams and pay my loans and take care of my responsibilities, but this isn't the route right now. So I had made those new relationships, those new connections and friends, and I went on to the next step. And in that time, it took 2.5 years for me to find a new job, and a job that I felt was taking me closer to my dreams and my passions. And in that time, I interviewed at a couple places. I was reaching out on LinkedIn. I was sending out resumes. I wasn't having any luck. And then finally one day I got contacted by Google. And that was mind-blowing. It was something that came as a result of action again, because some people might say, oh, well, they contacted you. That was luck. I had friends, coworkers, some people back at Penn State that worked in the Career Development Center that I had called to ask for advice, tell me, update your LinkedIn. That's one of the best ways to network in this generation, in this day and age. Update your LinkedIn, trust me. And again, I put it off for a couple of weeks. I said, sure, I'll do it later. Something that probably took about 15, 20 minutes to do, but I'm just prioritizing whatever was on TV, or no, I got to go out with my friends. So finally one day I did it. 2 days later, Google reached out. So that has been a constant theme. Something that I've seen is when I take action towards dreams and goals, the things I want, there is feedback, there's response. It's not always that profound. It's not always big things like getting an invite from Google, but there are small pieces of feedback you get. It might just be a feeling. It might be that you slept better at night, but you will get these amazing feelings in your body, and you'll have this clarity in your mind. You'll be thinking clear. You'll have more ideas. You'll be more engaged. You'll solve problems faster. And that went out. That whole experience happened, and I went through 3 rounds of interviews. I was doing very well. I actually got flown to California to interview with Google, and it went well, but I didn't feel it was my best, and they chose not to go forward. And to get that close, I thought I was going to be crushed if it didn't work out. I put a lot of pressure on myself to say, well, it's got to be perfect. I can't mess up. But when I got the no, I had this sense of peace. I had this just kind of, okay, this isn't the next step. I just got to keep looking for what is. And then the day after I got the no from Google, I was contacted by a recruiter for a job that would allow me to travel the world. I'd be able to problem solve and not be doing 500 emails a day. I'd be able to use my language skills, now speaking Spanish, Portuguese, and English. And I'd be able to learn, grow, develop, and this just seemed perfect. And I ended up interviewing with this company, and very quickly I was flown down to North Carolina, where I live now. I had the interviews, and everything just came together, and I knew this was the right next step. I was going to be closer to home during a tough time with my family, with my mom at that point battling cancer, and I knew this was the right step. So for the listeners, for the people who are about to graduate or who have graduated, who are in a job that doesn't fit them correctly, don't make concessions. Do not give in to what people tell you. Because for the entire 2 years and 2 months that I was at my first job, I told people I want to work internationally. I want to continue to use my language skills because I don't want to lose them. I want to do more strategic problem-solving work. And I want to be meeting people. I want to be face-to-face. I don't want to spend all day sitting at a computer staring at a screen because that's all I've been doing for those 2 years. I found ways to get away and connect with people, but that was the great majority of what I did. I had a lot of people tell me that will never happen. It'll take 10 years before you'll be traveling. It'll take 10 years before you can live abroad. That's not a realistic goal. I literally had a team leader tell me, so what are your dreams? And I told her honestly. And she said, okay, let's be more realistic. Don't ever let someone tell you to be more realistic with your dreams. Don't ever let someone minimize the importance and the impact that you want to have in this world, because what you have is unique. What each of you has is a unique story and a unique passion that you can share and that will bring light and energy and joy to the world around you. So that led to me getting this new job. Since then, I've traveled to 6 different countries in just a matter of 4.5 months. I've gotten to use my language skills. I'm going to be traveling more in the upcoming months. And I'm doing a job that I enjoy and then still working on my other passions, like this podcast, outside of work. So for those of you that are wondering what to do, how to do it, how to even get started, listen to yourself, listen to your heart, take a minute, write down the things you love. One of the best ways, because a lot of people will say, I don't know what I love, I don't know what I want, I don't know what my passion is. There's a couple different ways to reveal it to yourself or to discover it for yourself. One of which is asking yourself this question, and this was something that my dad gave to me, and I use it all the time, and it's such a powerful question. And that is, what would you do tomorrow if you knew you were going to succeed? And I'll say it one more time. What would you do tomorrow if you knew you were going to succeed? Typically, when I ask people this question, at first they go, well, that's not realistic. That's impossible. And I say, but if it was possible, if it was something real, what would you do? Most people immediately jump to, I'd pay my bills, I'd pay off my loans, I'd buy a house, I'd buy a boat, kind of standard what we're told we're supposed to want responses. And then when you keep digging, you go, okay, what else? Then people go, you know what, I'd travel to Spain and I would write. I would sit at cafes outside and write because I've always loved writing poetry. And then you go, okay, what else? Well, I'd learn another language. And you start to uncover these aspects of your personality and what it is that you want to do that you never really allowed yourself to see before. By taking away the veil of what we call impossible, by pulling back this fake limitation that we've applied to ourselves, we all of a sudden see all these beautiful things inside of us that we've been wanting to do or have a passion around, but we've been afraid to admit or just told ourselves it wasn't possible, so why waste our time? And then once you've taken that step, Once you've realized those things, pick one and just try it. No matter, say you're a terrible dancer. You go to a club or you go to a wedding, you're self-conscious, you want to get out on the dance floor more than anything, but you just can't bring yourself to do it. You could literally right now look up a YouTube video on any style of dance with a breakdown with choreography. You could go to any local studio and get a free class. You don't have to spend money. You could find out if that's something you want to do, and I guarantee just allowing yourself to try will be one of the most rewarding things you've ever done. There was a quote I heard once that said, how do you determine your passion? How do you know what it is you're meant to do? Well, think about what it is you do when you're procrastinating or you're wasting time. Maybe that's what you should be doing all the time. Now, I know that's sometimes true, but I also know a lot of my time was spent just messing around on the internet doing nothing and looking at videos of cats doing goofy things. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily the best one, but to be honest, a lot of what I want to do, what I like to do, involves the internet now. It involves podcasting, blogging, recording, video editing. So although maybe that form of me just messing around with the internet wasn't the best route, being on the computer is something that I find empowering. I find connections. That's how I met people and was able to learn a language. That's how I was able to find activities to do in Appleton. So I'll wrap this whole thing up, and the reason I tell the story is I want people to understand that it's this whole thing, life is a process, and it's not a process that we control completely. But there are things that we do control, and there are things that we can bring into our life. So often we play the victim. We say, well, that happened, and they did this to me, and they took that away from me, and that's why I'm unhappy. But the second that you put your happiness in someone else's actions or in someone else changing, when you say something like, God, if he was only more patient, I'd be happy. Or if she only communicated better, I'd be happy. The second that you take your happiness out of your own hands and give it to someone else, you're giving up control over who you are, what you want to be, and what you want to become. When you say, instead of saying, she needs to communicate better, he needs to communicate better, and you say instead, you change the question to be, what could I do better to communicate with this person more effectively? What could I do to communicate well with a person who is not an effective communicator? All of a sudden, you're giving that question to your brain, to your problem-solving center, to say, I need help. Let's figure this one out. Your brain is incredible of amazing things. So many of us just take it and just ignore its ability. So by giving yourself these questions, all of a sudden you'll find that you have the ability to do anything, to connect with that difficult person at work, to go ahead and approach that girl that you've been terrified to talk to lose the weight, to learn a language, to learn an instrument. It's inside of you and it is there. All you have to do is be willing to acknowledge your potential to do it and then take small steps. Even the tiniest thing today will allow you to have learned more about whatever your topic is than ever before. It'll have brought you closer to that level you want to be at, to mastery, to being the person you've always wanted to be. So I hope this story is kind of helped. I wanted to share my background for the podcast to help people understand where I've come from, what my story is to some extent, and what my mentality is now and how it's changed. And I want people to know that it's not like I figured these things out and I've had them mastered and now I'm just building on all that success and that progress. There have been lots of ups and downs. There have been times where I have felt like I was on top of the world. I was killing it in work and my personal life. I was in great shape. I was eating right. And I thought, I've learned all these lessons now. I'm never going to forget them. But then life comes at you. Crazy things happen. And in future podcasts, I'll be talking about the effects of my mom's cancer and then losing my mom at 24, what that did to me. and how that changed my perspective on things. But life will come at you. Life will send shit your way. I guarantee it. All of us have felt it to some extent. Some things are bigger or smaller, but they still have that monumental impact on us. Don't ever minimize your experience, because in losing my mom, people would say, oh, I just got dumped and I'm really upset, but it's nothing compared to what you're going through, so let's not even talk about it. And I'd say to them, if you need to talk about it, let's do that, because that's the biggest thing for you right now. That is the hardest thing for you. And hopefully, through talking through this, we can both help each other. Because I found that helping other people when I was feeling down helped me to feel better, or at least trying. You never know if what you're going to say is going to help, but you can at least try. And that's one of the best things in the world. My mom and dad always said, when you're feeling down, try and help someone else and you'll forget your problems. So life isn't always perfect, and I know that. But there is so much more beauty in the world than we acknowledge on a day-to-day basis. There's so much more out there for you than you can even begin to imagine. There is so much possibility. And I'd challenge you to take one step today to start working towards it, to start realizing it, to see it for yourself, to pause, pick your head up from the phone and look at nature, to read a book, to pick up an instrument and just try these things, because there is such a wealth and a beauty of life that exists. And what I feel my purpose is to help others learn that. And in order to do that, I have to learn it myself to be able to share those experiences. So that is why one of the biggest reasons I started this podcast. I feel that at this age, we're still kind of young and what a lot of people would say is stupid, or ignorant about the way the world works. That is why we are perfect to go after our dreams now, because we haven't had 40 years of how the world works, again, air quotes, being beaten into us and being told this isn't good, that won't work, that's stupid. When you're young and ambitious and free and excited about life, there is nothing holding you back. You have no responsibilities to anyone else. This is the time to learn about you, to embrace who you are, and to take action. Do not let anybody stop you. And if you're saying, well, I just don't know, I need proof, go to Awesomeness Fest. Google those videos. If you go to the event, it's even better. Google TED Talks. Listen to the stories of these people that have overcome insurmountable odds, by many people's definition, to live extraordinary lives that allow them to change lives. Go ahead and take the time to learn about you, because if you do that, I promise, life will redefine itself. You will feel different. You will look different to yourself. And although life isn't perfect, although life throws challenges at us, although you won't always be happy, because you have to feel all these various emotions in life, the lows will be less low, or they'll be shorter. The highs will be higher and better. And I want that for all of you. I want that to be the experience that we all have. I know that we think there are certain things we want in life. We want money and cars and bigger houses. We're told to keep working our way up in a company, make more money, get more things, and then we'll be happy. But I've come to realize very quickly that that is not what's going to bring happiness. I've heard extremely wealthy people talk about, listen guys, Kyle Cease said you're chasing the wrong thing. And he's seen lots of celebrities in Hollywood, because he is one of them, who make lots of money. And he said, and then we get what we think we had been chasing our whole lives, and we realize we're not happy, we're not fulfilled, we don't have a sense of purpose. He said that's why you see so many celebrities in Hollywood turning to drugs and alcohol, or turning to spirituality, because they're trying to find purpose, or just numb themselves because they think maybe life isn't what they expected. Or maybe they're taking drugs to try and have some other type of realization in life. But I want you all to realize that I've had glimpses, that I've had moments of clarity, that I've felt these things for extended periods of time and then come in and out, and there is so much more. I know I'm harping on the point, but I think it's so critical, especially for young people like me, to hear and to be reminded of. So, to wrap this up, like I said I would earlier, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for taking the time to let this podcast be a part of your life. I know the time that you have in your life is the most valuable thing, so that the fact that you would take that time and commit it to this is hugely, hugely important to me, and I truly value that. I want you all to know that I also take it very seriously, and I take it as a responsibility to generate content that will help you grow, that will help you learn, that will help you realize your potential, and that I can do things that will reintroduce you to your power. That is what I promise to do through all of this. So if you have any questions, if you have ideas, if there's something you want to learn, please reach out to me. I would love to hear your ideas. I would love to hear what you want to learn. Who would you like me to interview? Any of those things would be fantastic for me to hear. My email address is brian@overcominggraduation.com. That's brian@overcominggraduation, all one word, .com. So please reach out. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear what it is you want from life, what your dream is, because hopefully through hearing that, I can help you either take a step and either take the step, or maybe we can even get you there faster than you ever thought possible. Thank you guys for everything. The support that I've had in my life has helped me get through some very challenging things recently. And this new adventure I'm taking with this podcast has been monumentally impactful and positive for me. And this is just an example of how doing the things you love will bring you more joy and clarity than doing what other people tell you life is supposed to be or what you're supposed to do in life. So you guys have a great night. Go out and try something. Allow yourself to be your best. Write something down you've always wanted to do, and then take one step. So this is Brian Drury with Overcoming Graduation. Thanks for listening, and I'll be talking to you guys again real soon.